Okay, in this next section, which is called Playing with Blocks, we're going to be doing just that, because that's all that buildings are just big blocks. Now you'll remember in the last lessons when I talked to you about 1 and 2 point perspective, we put down our horizon line and our vanishing points. And I mentioned that sometimes the placement of vanishing points can make a building look wrong. It can make a scene look a little weird. And I've had people ask, well, how could that be if I'm using it correctly? If I'm using perspective correctly, how can it be wrong? Well, technically, it can be right, but it's not the way that humans see the world. You can end up with a sort of bizarre fisheye lens sort of look where everything's coming at you and very close to you in the middle and sort of rapidly receding around the edges, and that's not usually how humans see the world. If that's how you see the world, please see your doctor. I made this little block right here out of paper. Pretty cute. And this is the one thing that a lot of newer artists have a problem with. They say, how come when I want to draw a building, they always come out looking like this, with a corner right there and one side and another side, and it just looks like that, like a big cube just facing you at the corner. And that is because you're not watching where you put your vanishing points. If your vanishing points are exactly the same distance away from that middle line, well, naturally, you are always going to get a big block. And it will always be pointed corner straight at you. It's technically accurate, but it's not very interesting. That's not really how humans really look at things. Most times when you walk around a building, you see most of one side of a building. Unless you're standing on the very, very corner and looking straight at the building from a certain angle, you're almost always going to see one side more than you see the other. Like on my block here. When I tilt it like this, you see more of the pink side and less of the yellow. Turn it the other way, the other way. That is because if this were on a piece of paper, like if I had drawn this, as I turn it, as I come more over to the pink side, the yellow side, you can see less of it, and that is because the perspective lines, the little vanishing point that is in charge of this side, gets closer and closer to the block. While this one, they get further and further away, and your vanishing points gets further away until it's all the way across the room, until you've got a perfect head-on square front of a building, at which case the vanishing points would just be parallel. They wouldn't disappear towards anywhere. But when you turn it back, as you turn it, they would come closer and closer. So the lesson here is the less you want to see of one side of the building, the closer your vanishing point has to be. The more you want to see of one side, the further away it should be. Simple enough to learn. So let's try that building again. Let's put down our corner. And let's put our vanishing point over here. Then maybe another one, a little bit closer, but still pretty far off. There we got 1, 2. And you see, that's a much better angle. That's a much more dynamic building. We could put the edge in right there. Maybe a much shorter edge over here. And you can see more of this side of the building because this point is further away. So, just to reiterate, the further away your vanishing point, the more you'll see that side of the building in 2-point perspective. The closer it is. Now, you don't want to move it so close up, like right here, where suddenly your building looks like that. So it looks like an envelope at this point. Because that will just reinforce that fisheye look. In addition, I haven't told you, where to put your lines for the bottom of the building. That's an easy thing. The closer you are to the building, the further down your lines should go. If you're standing right up against the corner of that thing with your nose in the corner, it'll be all the way down here because the bottom of the screen, the bottom of your panel that is, if we're thinking like directors, it's the screen, that's where you're looking, that's where you are. The horizon line, because that's the furthest we can see, the horizon is as far as you can see when you stand on a plane, the closer your bottom of the building is to the horizon, the further away it's going to be because it's sitting further away. If that makes sense to you. So if we erase all of these lines, just go with our furthest away line. Take out our horizon here. we've got a building that's fairly far away. Fairly far away and covered in eraser bits. See, we've just got our little building right there. Put some doors in to make it interesting. Maybe it's a warehouse building. I like to draw warehouses, can you tell? I don't know. I find them fascinating. You will too. So that is your building right there. Now say you wanted to add, you know, a closer building. A building sitting smack dab in front of it. Obviously, the bottom of that building, since it's closer to you, would be closer down. Like this. Closer to the bottom of the page. Now I'm kind of effing this up. Not too bad though. So now you've got a block in front. So things that are in front, their edges are, obviously, they go down. Things that are in back, duh. It's not rocket science. I've seen rocket science. This isn't it. I know a guy who does rocket science. There's the top of the building. And like I said, you're just using your two lines. You're just using your 2 points and your lines to make all this happen. So you've got a box in front of a box. Maybe it's another building. Who knows? You can build an entire cityscape around that. Put a big tall building right behind the first. And after a little bit of a time lapse to erase all the extra lines around and make it a little bit darker here and there, you can see how these three shapes really come together all in the same space. And that's really all there is to it.